They call it the most magical place on earth, a destination where your worries are supposed to just melt away. But what happens when the real world pierces through that magical bubble? Behind the fireworks and the smiling faces, a disturbing and tragic pattern has emerged. In just 3 months, 6 people have died on Disney World property. The latest, a man discovered at the bustling Disney Springs shopping district, marks the sixth tragedy in a string of incidents that has authorities investigating and the public asking one serious question: what is happening at Walt Disney World? This isn't a story about broken down rides. This is a story about a grim timeline of events that has shattered the illusion of a perfect, impenetrable bubble of happiness. Today, we're breaking down the timeline of these tragic events, looking at the official reports and asking some tough questions about safety protocols at a place that meant to be the ultimate escape. What we found is a sequence of events that demands a closer look. So, how did we get here? This string of tragedies that has put Walt Disney World under a microscope really kicked off in the fall of 2025. It didn't start with a single large disaster, but with a series of deeply personal and tragic moments that, viewed on their own, might seem unconnected. But when you piece them together, a disturbing pattern starts to form. Our timeline begins on October 14th of 2025. On that day, 31-year-old Summer Equits, a woman described by those who knew her as a devoted Disney superfan, was found deceased at the iconic Contemporary Resort. Authorities quickly ruled her death as an apparent take herself out, caused by multiple blunt impact injuries from a fall. She had reportedly traveled to the resort from her home in Illinois without informing her family, a trip to a place she had once honeymooned, which ended in the worst possible way. It was a heartbreaking start to what would become an incredible dark period for the resort. Just 1 week later, on October 21st, another call went out to emergency services. This time, Disney's Fort Wilderness Resort and Campground. A man in his 60s who was traveling with his wife suffered from what was described as a medical episode on one of the resort trails. He was found unresponsive and, despite being transported to a nearby hospital, he passed away. Reports later noted he had pre-existing medical conditions. The Orange County Sheriff's Office stated there were no signs of foul play, classifying it as a tragic but natural event. But the reprieve was short-lived. Only 2 days later, after that, on October 23rd, the emergency lights were flashing once again at the Contemporary Resort. Matthew Alec Kahn, a 28-year-old aspiring football referee, was found deceased. Authorities reported that he had leapt from an upper floor of the hotel in an apparent take himself out. It was the second take themselves out at the same hotel in just 9 days. A fact that sent a shockwave of concern through the Disney fan community. 3 deaths on property in the span of just 10 days was already alarming, but the pattern was far from over. The tragedies continued into November. On November 3rd, a woman in her 40s was found unresponsive at Disney's Pop Century Resort. She was transported to a hospital where she was later pronounced dead. Authorities reported that there were no signs of foul play in her death. Less than a week later, on November 8th, another death was reported. This time at Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort and Spa. Details on this incident have remained limited, but it marked the 5th death on Disney's property in just over 3 weeks. For a brief period, things went quiet, but that silence was broken. Just after the new year, on the night of January 2nd, 2026, at approximately 9 p.m., deputies from the Orange County Sheriff's Office responded to a call at the Disney Springs Orange Garage. There, they discovered a deceased man. The incident is being investigated as a possible taking himself out. Witnesses described a scene of controlled chaos with blue tarps erected to shield the area from public view and a heavy police perimeter. Photos and videos quickly spread across social media, showing police cruisers with flashing lights cutting through the festive atmosphere of the shopping district. It was a stark and morbid contrast. That's 6 deaths in roughly 80 days. A horrifying concentration of tragedy in a place built on the promise of joy. After laying out that timeline, you have to ask, what is happening at Walt Disney World? Is this just a statistical anomaly? A terrible string of coincidences? Or is it a sign of a deeper problem cracking the very foundation of the happiest place on earth? Now, to be fair, it's important to add some context. Walt Disney World is not a small town. It is a sprawling metropolis of its own. It covers over 40 square miles and welcomes tens of millions of visitors each year. With a population that rivals many cities, it is statistically inevitable that tragedies, including medical emergencies and personal crises, will occur. Since the resort opened in 1971, there have been an estimated of 68 to 71 deaths on the property, which averages out to just over 1 per year. Law enforcement has been clear that each of the recent cases is being investigated separately, and that, at present, they are not officially connected. But does that make this pattern any less disturbing? 6 deaths in under 3 months is a significant deviation from the historical average. It has rightfully put a spotlight not just on the events themselves, but on the environment in which they occurred. The immense pressure of Disney Vacation is a well-documented phenomenon. There's the financial strain, the physical exhaustion of walking for miles, and the emotional weight of trying to create the perfect family memory. For individuals who are already vulnerable, this high-stakes environment can exacerbate underlying issues. Some mental health experts have even raised the concept of take yourself out tourism, where individuals travel to a location that holds personal significance to them during a moment of crisis. The fact that at least 3 of these recent deaths were apparent take myself out at a destination known for happiness is a chilling irony that cannot be overlooked. Beyond the personal crises, however, are questions about corporate responsibility and emergency protocols. When a guest is in distress, whether from a medical emergency or a mental health crisis, every second counts. The expectation is that a company as meticulous as Disney has world-class systems in place, but are those systems working as they should? A recent wrongful death lawsuit filed against the Boathouse, a third-party restaurant in Disney Springs, raises serious questions. In June of 2025, a 42-year-old Kevin Lee Duncan choked on a piece of steak while dining with his family. The lawsuit alleges that instead of immediately calling 911, restaurant staff first contacted their own security, causing a critical delay in getting emergency medical services to the scene. By the time paramedics arrived, Duncan had been without oxygen for an extended period. He passed away in the hospital 2 days later. While Disney is not a defendant in this specific case, it happened on their property, in the very same district as the most recent death. And it highlights a critical point. In an emergency, the right protocol can be the difference between life and death. These events are complex, and the official investigations are still ongoing. There are so many factors to consider, from personal responsibility to corporate oversight. That's why we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this series of tragedies? Do you see it as a statistical inevitability, or do you believe it points to a larger issue with safety and guest welfare at the resort? Let us know your perspectives in the comments below. At the end of the day, we are left with a series of tragedies and a cloud of uncertainty. 6 deaths, 6 families forever changed. While authorities state these tragic events are not connected, the sheer frequency has left many wondering if the happiest place on earth is facing a crisis it can no longer hide behind its magical facade. The carefully created image of Walt Disney World is one of the safety, control, and flawless execution. It's a world where every detail is managed. But this recent pattern suggests that the real world, with all its pain and unpredictability, can and does pierce that bubble. The question now is what, if anything, will be done to reinforce it. For those who visit seeking an escape, the hope is that these events serve as a wake-up call, ensuring that the safety and well-being of every guest is, and always will be, the top priority, because no magical memory is worth a human life. If you or someone you know is struggling, please remember that help is available. You can call or text the Crisis Lifeline at 988.